Our goal today will be, we're going to draw images of reflections. And remember that images are the second thing. So this right here is my pre-image, ABC. And this is how we're going to do it. We have two ways, two things to focus on. Number one, we're going to focus on how much rotation we go. There is a positive direction, there is a negative direction. Since this is positive 60 degrees, that means clockwise, as opposed to counter, or if you're British, anti-clockwise. All right, the second thing to point out is what we're focusing on. This point P is what we're going to focus it around, what we're going to rotate this thing around. So, like I said, if I was physically doing this with an object right here, it's kind of easy to do as long as I keep P where it is and I swing this around, then I've accomplished the rotation. All I have to do is go 60 degrees. That one went more like 90 degrees, so I'll go back. Okay, now I do want to show some notation before we get to it. Let's get the notation down. Small r means rotation. Now, we're not going to use vector notation like we did. We're not going to use the brackets. We're going to use parentheses. And what we're going to say, the first thing is how many degrees we're going to rotate it. The second thing says around, like where is your focal point that you're going to rotate it around. In this case, we're going to focus on P, and that's where it's going to rotate about. We say rotate about. And then lastly, on the same level as the R, we're going to say what object we're going to rotate. So in this case, I'm going to be rotating the ABCD. So it's almost the same notation as the transformation or the translation that we did, except this tells you different information, but it does tell you the same. Same piece here, just a different job to do. All right. How do we do it? All you do is grab any point you want. Any point you want. I'm going to choose D right here. And I'm going to draw a straight segment connecting P. Now all you do is, now we're going to draw another line that bounces off that. That's got to be 60 degrees here. Now that's kind of tough to do by freehand, but I know 90 degrees is out here because that makes a 90-degree angle. You do not need to draw this second part right here. But if you did draw the 90 degrees, that at least gives you a reference, right? And I know 60 degrees is roughly 2/3 of that. So I'm not going to go in half. I'm not going to go in half right here, but 60 degrees is roughly right there. So if I were to bounce it like so, there's my 60 degrees. Now here's the key thing when we do it. However long this segment is right here, that's exactly how long this segment has to be as well. So, of course, we're doing it by freehand, so we're going to estimate. So it looks here, so it looks like I might need to go slightly farther, and I'm going to put that point here. Now we're going to use D prime as my new point. So just to make clear, this here is the 60 degrees that we rotated. Okay, and now from here, all we have to do is redraw from that point. So if I were to rotate my paper, and now I'm going to redraw exactly this right here. Here's my A, B, C, D. I'm just going to redraw exactly that, but I'm going to do so right here. So that means relative to D prime, now that I've rotated my paper just a little bit, I'm going to go directly above to get to A. So make sure that however long this is right here is exactly how long this is right here. So let me try that. Looks like that's roughly the same size. So this point here will be A prime. Notice that however long this is right here, I want that to be 90 degrees, the same distance there. There's my B. Come down here to my C prime, connect the dots, la la la. And if we go back to here, notice, it's a little bit fat. Sorry about that. but no fat shaming your rectangles. All right, I'm going to practice number 2 here. I'll do it live, and then you guys can work on the next ones here. All right, so notice what I have. I have a right triangle, A, B, C. I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees. And so I just select any point I want. It doesn't matter. I'll choose B, and I'm going to draw a segment that attaches it. And then I'm going to go exactly 90 degrees away from that, like so. And my blues should be the exact same length. Again, these two should be congruent. Now, I place my point there, and I call that B prime. Now, if you have your paper, all you have to do now is rotate your paper and call that down. Now that I call this down, here's my down, I'm just going to replicate this exactly, but now high. So here again, however long this is, that's how long I want to make that. So A prime is going to be up here. Again, I'm doing this freehand, so it's not going to be perfect. So A prime right there. And my C is here. It looks like it's a 90-degree triangle, so I'm going to make it so that those are congruent there. And therefore, AC, or A prime, C prime, will also be congruent there. All right, again, because of the way the distortion of my thing here, it's not perfect, but I do want to point out that this here was 90 degrees, a 90-degree clockwise rotation. Let me write this out at what it would look like in instructions. Rotate 90 degrees about the point P, and the image the pre-image that I'm rotating is the ABC. 2 more things we want to look at. Number 1 is, can you visualize and figure out what's happening? And as we follow the information here. So we have point O here, and it's the center for a regular hexagon, B, C, D, E, F, G. And we're going to find the image of the given point or segment for the given rotation. So now we're just interpreting what this means. So here's F. So let's find F. And it says I am going to rotate F 120 degrees around or about the O. So here's my F. So if I draw the segment to O, I want to go 120 degrees. But wait a minute, what's my mistake? I went anti-clockwise. Good, so I need to bounce it the other way to B. Good, so I'm going clockwise this direction, 120 degrees. You do not need to draw all this that I did, only because in a moment you're probably going to need to erase it anyhow. So that means F will rotate to B there. So the answer here would simply be B. And I'm not sure if my notation would be like an arrow or an equal sign. I'll verify that, or simply just B. So I'll use an arrow for now, as if it were, when I do all this, it becomes B. And the last thing we're going to do is to practice all of this by sketching it out first. So I want to do a little bit hard for you to see. My apologies for the somewhat slim drawings here, but there's your X and there's your Y. So the crosshairs are right in the middle. All right, so A is 2, 2, so approximately there. And B, 3, negative 2, approximately there. And C is negative 1, positive 3, approximately there. Label them accordingly. All right, when in doubt, just make something up. No, I'm just kidding. O there means origin, and the origin is 0, 0. So that's going to be the exterior point about which everything is going to rotate. So all I have to do is take one of the points, go 90 degrees, and re-sketch it. This is going to sketch on top of itself a little bit. There's going to be some overlap. So I'm using 2 colors, which actually works out pretty well, or actually I'll use 3 colors. But I'll start off here. If I just go A, B, remember that 90 degrees slope there. And if I want to cut 90 degrees this way, you have to pay attention and watch out. My blue do not look perfectly 90 degrees according to the sketch. But if you look at the slope here, perpendicular slope, remember that perpendicular slopes, slopes of perpendicular lines, remember, are opposite reciprocal. So in this case, the slope here is effectively positive 1, so up 1, right 1. This one's down 1, right 1, which is the opposite reciprocal. So although the diagram does not look perfectly 90 according to what I drew, that's probably because these boxes are not perfect squares, okay? So instead of counting by what it looks, I'm counting by opposite reciprocal and actually using the counting here. So I went down 1, right 1, down 1, right 1 twice. Okay, now I'm going to re-sketch the ABC right there. And I'm going to use the same relative positions. So notice here, A to get to B is just right 1, down 4. Now from here, I'm just going to go right 1, down 4. So there's my B. And then A over here is like up, and then try that again. Yep, up and left. So now from here, I'm going to go up and left. So this ends up rotating it, pretty much overlapping on itself. And let me just label things appropriately. This is now my A prime, this is my B prime, and this is my C prime. And I know that I'm correct. I can just double check here. This one goes down. To get from here to here, I go down 3, right 1. So to get from over here, I go right 3, up 1. So that's reciprocal. And the same thing holds true for the B to get to there. B to get to there is just opposite reciprocal.